I Believe in Angels by Elaine Lloyd. I would like to thank everyone, both in this life and the afterlife, for their kind participation and for allowing us to put into print these personal encounters. My special thanks go to my spirit guide and the team on the other side of life who makes all this possible. My gratitude goes to my immediate family and to my closest friends here on the earth plane, who have supported me immensely during the time of our dreadful loss. I am grateful too to Brian, my publisher, for not retiring as he planned to do so, and for preparing this, my first book, for publication. God bless you all. Elaine Lloyd, April 2020. This book is dedicated to my loving husband, Mr. Neil Andrew Lloyd. Sunrise the 28th of October 1970. Sunset the 8th of August 2019. Love always and forever, Elaine. Elaine Lloyd Nee Hadfield was born on the 5th of June 1972 in East Manchester to loving parents. She first met Neil Lloyd in 1982 at Conway in North Wales, and she told her mother then that she would marry him one day, and she did. Elaine had a normal upbringing, and her ambition in her teenage years was to be an opera singer and make it big in New York. Although she earned a grade 8 at the Manchester School of Music, she was unsuccessful in hitting the bright lights of the West End in London or Broadway, but she went down well enough at the Tameside Operatic and Dramatic Society and featured in their popular shows until 1990. Elaine then worked in a dog parlour, but soon discovered she was allergic to dog fur, so she moved into office work, where she met the love of her life, Neil Lloyd, for the second time in 1999. Neil later proposed to her on the top of the Eiffel Tower in Paris, and they were married in June 2004 in exotic Dominican. It was about this period that Elaine and Neil both discovered that they had the gift of mediumship, even though both of them had experienced many spiritual events during their younger days. Elaine became a card reader, while Neil developed and produced a variety of products to help people who experienced connections with the spirit world. Nonetheless, while they were a very happy couple who were blessed with 2 wonderful, beautiful children, dark testing days were ahead for them all. My first encounter. Where to begin? It must have been in mid-June of 1978 that I experienced my first encounter with the spirit world. I was 6 years old, and it was at this tender age that I first became aware that I am different from other girls and boys. I remembered it vividly, as though it was yesterday. It was at that tender age one night that I had a vision of myself flying over huge trees and bushes, then seeing my reflection in the river as I skimmed over it. Although amazing it was not at least a bit frightening. I also viewed the most beautiful mansion below, with its pointed roof and remarkable grounds that any girl could wish to see. I will never forget telling my parents about my dream. In the morning, their reaction was, not unnaturally, was of shock, because they thought their youngest daughter had suddenly developed a wild yet vivid imagination. However, I realise now that it was not my imagination, it was reality. I had astral travelled to a place called Burton Hall, which later in life I discovered still exists and is situated in Cheshire. The feeling of love I experienced was overwhelming. I felt like a princess and didn't want my flying over those wonderful grounds to stop, especially as 2 beautiful angels had accompanied me during my flight. I knew I was safe and felt protected, and so I wanted the experience to continue. As a little girl, I often spoke of my mansion experience and promised my parents that when I was older, I would take them both for a visit to Burton Hall to see it for themselves. Surprisingly, some 40 years later, my amazing, beautiful mansion was offered at the prize in a competition. Naturally, I bought tickets to make my dream to own the wonderful hall come true. But sadly, I wasn't lucky in the draw. Nonetheless, I consoled myself that I had at least had the chance of entering the competition, because my experience as a youngster had made such a huge impression on me and also in my later life. One thing is for certain, angels are real. They surround us all the time. I have seen them appear in paintings, photographs, and even on my bedroom walls since I was a child, and they still visit me now. My second encounter. The second encounter with the spirit world was in 1978 on Christmas Eve. I was giddy and excited and could not wait for Santa to deliver my expected presents. I awoke in the early hours of the morning to find a beautiful angel with huge white wings and a white beard standing at the foot of my bed. I recall closing my eyes tightly, then opening them again, just to make sure I wasn't dreaming. However, I soon fell asleep again without opening my presents. When I did awake, I jumped out of bed and excitedly told my older sisters and my brother of my experience. They just smiled at me and gently admonished me by saying, "Elaine, stop romancing." But I wasn't romancing. What I saw was real. One of my older siblings teased me and said it was Santa who must have put some magic white wings on. By doing much research as I grew older, I discovered that the angel I had seen on that night was a warrior angel. Also, after speaking to mediums at spiritualist churches, they confirmed that what I had seen all those years ago was a warrior angel and that they do exist. I was also told that if you see them, you are very, very blessed. My asthma attack. In August 2008, while my husband was working away, I was admitted to hospital with a severe asthma attack. My son, who was then only 2 years old, bless him, rang for an ambulance, as my husband had left a telephone number in the front of our address book in case there was ever an emergency in our household. I was told by the asthma consultant that I had allergy asthma, and sadly we would have to rehome our gorgeous Cocker Spaniel called Sky. However, there was also some good news later on that evening. I was discharged and I was sent straight home to bed. At that time, Nana was one of my guides, and I had the most beautiful visions of her looking so well and fresh-faced. She put her hand upon my shoulder and said, "Elaine, you might find this very hard, but I want you to listen to me very carefully. This dream is so clear, as though it was only yesterday. I am so pleased that I was able to put this into writing, as it will give so many people confidence to know that we are truly looked after when our loved ones go over to the other side of life. This may come across very strange, in that I was advised by my Nana to reprogram my brain, in effect to tell my mind that I no longer had asthma. The next morning, I explained this to my family, and they all thought I'd gone mad. Most unfortunately, I also did what the consultant told me to do and rehomed our lovely Cocker Spaniel. We were all so heartbroken, and the house just felt so empty without our furry friend around the home. I kept taking the prescribed medicine and did as the consultant advised me to do, but my heart and soul was telling me to take more notice of my dream. This dream, I was told, was meant for a reason, and I was so close to my Nana. I knew that she would never advise me to do anything that would make my health worse. However, I was becoming worse by the day. I had rehomed the dog, which I still felt so bad about, and more importantly, it had no effect whatsoever on my asthma attacks, as I was actually becoming more worse. About a month later, Nana came to me again in a dream. This time she wasn't as friendly. She was really angry, which was unlike my Nana. She shouted really loudly at me and said, "Elaine, please listen." This medicine is not agreeing with you. You need to stop taking it straight away. Instead, I relied upon antihistamine tablets. The next few weeks went by and I decided to eventually listen to spirit. So I stopped taking all prescribed medicine and relied upon antihistamines and inhalers for emergencies only, but which I did not use, as gradually I discovered I no longer had allergy asthma. So here I am 10 years later and still asthma-free, with two gorgeous Airedale Terriers who have just delivered a gorgeous litter of puppies, 5 gorgeous beautiful boys and 3 gorgeous beautiful girls. It just goes to show, in my opinion, that if you have a positive mindset, miracles can and sometimes do happen. It certainly did happen to me. Always have faith in God and Spirit, because they are here to guide us on our way while we are here on Mother Earth. God is within us all, and we're all God's children. I've been so blessed in life that I have been guided by Spirit and God, and I pray that the person reading this book will also have the same beautiful spiritual encounters that I have experienced to this day. It really does open your eyes to the big wide world we live in, and there is so much to life than we currently know, or even prepared to acknowledge. My third encounter. The third encounter happened in March 2017, when I was involved in a serious car crash. I was on my way to a recruitment agency interview, so I could sign up to do some supply work in primary schools. I do try to wipe this experience out of my mind. It was raining heavily, and I had unfortunately exited across a junction due to the slippery nature of the road surface, which caused the car to aquaplane on the tarmac. Initially, the impact knocked me unconscious, and as I came to, I became very frightened. As my consciousness returned, I remembered the police, ambulance and fire brigade sirens. They were all still ringing out. It was quite an unholy scene. There I was, trapped in my crumpled car and feeling panic-stricken because the paramedics were arguing with the firemen, who stated that my car could go up in flames any time. It seemed somewhat insensitive to me, as I was still pinned to the wreckage. Then I heard the sound of glass being smashed, so the paramedics could give me oxygen, and thankfully the car roof was being sawn off, so the firemen could extract me from the awful wreckage. My whole body was bruised and burnt by the explosion of the 10 airbags that had done their job and prevented a worse outcome for me. I prayed everything would turn out all right and that my legs were not badly injured due to the severity of the impact. My whole body had gone into shock. Once the roof had been cut off, a caring fireman held my hand and then covered my body with a silver sheet to help me keep warm. He asked me several times, "Can you feel your legs?" I replied, "No." But he continued to reassure me that everything would be okay. He lay across me on the silver sheet to protect my body so that the glass that had to be smashed wouldn't fall on me. Prior to my body being transferred to the spinal board, I was given a large dose of morphine. This is when the most amazing vision ever occurred. I saw my Nana with 2 beautiful angels, one on either side of her, as they put me into the ambulance. I knew at that point I had been blessed once again and that I would be okay. After many scans and checkups by consultants, I was discharged from Manchester Royal Hospital the same night. I walked out with all my family greeting and telling me that it was a miracle that I had survived. I was so happy and I felt blessed that I had been saved or protected by angels and my Nana. My 2 children were crying with joy and relief that I was all right, and my husband made me laugh by calling me a bloody nightmare that had turned him into a nervous wreck. The next morning my husband went to collect my CV documents from the car compound, and I insisted I should accompany him. My stomach turned when I saw my car crushed to half its normal size. I noticed a white envelope on the passenger seat with all of my documents still in it. No one in the compound could believe I had only suffered burnt lips and a few bruises on my body. The man who was in charge of the compound said, "Someone was looking out for you yesterday." My reply was, "Well, I do believe in angels." My fourth encounter. This occurred in May 2017. My beautiful dad had passed away the previous week in his armchair at home. I had been to visit Dad in the Lady Smith building at Tameside Hospital with my husband Neil and my son Owen, who was only 10 at the time. My husband and son didn't enter the room where my beautiful dad was. They both sat in the bereavement waiting area, where you are allowed to put a message on the remembrance tree. Our son Owen put a heartfelt message on, which read, "Grandad, you will be in my heart forever." Well, our private time with Dad was coming to an end, and I was called into the room for the last time. He looked so peaceful and seemed to just be asleep. I even smiled to myself, thinking that any minute he would jump up and say, "Boo." I held Dad's hand tight, and I told him he was the best father that any daughter could ever wish for, and that I was so proud that he was my dad. I also told him I would not be sad, as I had too many happy memories to remember. As I was talking out loud, there was only me and my dad in the room. I sensed a wonderful, beautiful feeling that had come over me, and I knew that my guardian angels was with me. I felt the warm sensation all over my body, reassuring me that everything was all right, and my dad was at peace. It was so overwhelming that I didn't want it to end. When I left the room, I explained to the young lady at the bereavement centre what I had experienced. She reassured me that it was nothing to be scared of. Her spirit was simply there, looking out for me. My spiritual awakening. In February 2018, my gorgeous loving husband, Neil, and I both experienced our spiritual awakening. I'm so glad that I didn't go through this on my own. But sadly, we were on the verge of splitting up after being together for 20 years. We were no longer getting on and argued over the most silly, stupid little irritations. Examples are, who didn't put the sauce back in the cupboard? Why wasn't his washing in the basket, but was left at the top of the stairs for me to pick up as usual? After all, I'd been doing that for 20 years, why stop now? It was at this low point in our lives that Spirit intervened and gave me proof that all our dreams and seeing Spirit from young age began to make sense. Our love for one another was eternal, and it proved that we were true soulmates, and we came together even closer than what we'd ever been in our entire lives. Both Neil and I kept waking up unusually early hours between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m, which I learned is a period when the veil between our world and the spirit world is at its thinnest. Under spiritual guidance, I learned to meditate during these hours. Strangely, I also learned during meditation how water can heal everything in one's body, and how we are able to communicate with our minds if we drink the good water. Everything began to click into place. My nana came in spirit and told me how to bake bread. I'd been baking it for the past few weeks after finding a recipe online, which amazingly turned out to be my nana's own recipe. This is when I believed and knew that we were all put on Mother Earth for a reason. All made so much sense, that the reason I am here is to give guidance and to help all the awakening souls. I'm now on LinkedIn as spiritual counsellor, life coach and medium. I have helped so many people come out of the dark and into the light. I have also connected with so many amazing spiritual people who have been through the same experience as myself. And I have also made some excellent, genuine, lovely, caring and honest friendships. I can absolutely say that I love the way the universe connects us all together. My fifth encounter. I really loved my fifth encounter with Spirit, as I went to bed absolutely shattered due to being up all night on the 18th of February 2019. after our gorgeous Airedale Roxy gave birth, at the time, to 6 beautiful puppies. As I drifted off to sleep, my wonderful dad came to me in a dream with a beautiful angel in the background. It was so clear. My father told me that Roxy would have 8 healthy puppies, and one would be called Barney, which, oddly, was my dad's nickname. It wasn't the first time I had this dream, as I recall telling my 8-year-old daughter Holly the same dream weeks before the puppies were born. Well, on Tuesday the 19th of February 2019, I awoke at 6 o'clock a.m. After only having about 2 hours sleep. I was so curious to see if any more puppies had been born, but I went downstairs and I was still half asleep at the time, so I kept counting the puppies over and over again, and to my amazement there were no longer 6 puppies but 8. There were 3 gorgeous girls and 5 beautiful boys. I had a huge smile on my face and I ran upstairs and woke my husband and the children. They just couldn't believe it. Even Roxy's scan had shown only 6 puppies. I had also told the scan lady that I thought there would be more, and further that there would be a nice to keep one and call it Barney after my dad. When the puppies were 3 weeks old, their new owners were allowed to view them. I had taken the precaution of asking for deposits over the phone so that none of the new owners would be disappointed, lest the pups had already been spoken for. One lady dropped out, and I had a gentleman called Paddy on my list as a first reserve, as his son Darren had already reserved a puppy for himself. His father had recently lost his dog, called Ruby, and he'd had to put her to sleep. Previously, he had an Airedale called Max. I rang up the gentleman, and to my surprise, he sounded so much like my dad and had the same sense of humour as my dad as well. Well, when Paddy came to view the puppies, there was just 2 gorgeous boys remaining, I should say. Mr. Mint, the larger of the 2, which really took to Paddy, so Mr. Orange was a puppy left for his son. I was over the moon because the 2 siblings would be together, and almost forgot to ask the gentleman what he was going to call the puppy, as we had simply given them names that related to the colour of their prospective collars. The gentleman Paddy teasedly challenged me. "Well, aren't you going to ask me the name I have chosen for him?" I apologised and said I normally do, but I had been overwhelmed that the 2 boys would be together. Paddy then said, "I'm calling this big fella Barney." I had tears in my eyes, and he must have thought I was going crazy when I told him that he had chosen my late father's name. Gallantly he said, "I can change it to Dave if you like." I replied, "No, Barney is absolutely perfect and suits him really well." I have kept in touch with all of the new owners and cannot wait to visit them in the future, especially Barney. It goes to show that the universe listens to us all, and every day too. My amazing dream. A few days before my 47th birthday, my nana and my dad came to me in a dream, which was so real. When I awoke in the early hours, I actually believed it was real and in this dimension. My nana told me in a calm voice to look after my mum and to tell her to be strong. In the background was my dad smiling straight at me. The next words from my nana's mouth were so heart-melting because 14 years before, I had lost a baby whose gender I never knew. All I knew that this beautiful, gorgeous little soul had a heartbeat, and I was told the loss was a blessing in disguise. The midwife explained to me that I would not be able to carry a child in my womb, and that if I would have carried it to full term, there would have been something seriously wrong with the unfortunate, beautiful little soul. Well, for years now, every time I've visited a spiritual church, I always see a beautiful, gorgeous boy with blonde hair bouncing a great big blue ball. I have never known who he is. However, Nana confirmed to me that this beautiful little boy was my boy I lost 14 years ago. And further, she told me he had never left my side. While I have been here on Mother Earth, my dad was also there in the background, but he was very firm and also endorsed it by saying, "You should have realised that spirit is connected to you." Later, when I awoke, I shed tears of emotion, both happy and sad, because I had only just realised that this beautiful boy that I keep seeing was my first unborn child. Even though I found out 14 years later, it was such a joy to know that he is my child and such a beautiful little angel. I later had it confirmed by another medium that the boy was related to me, but because he had only been in early stages of his development, I had not realised this gorgeous child was related to me, as he would have been 14 now, so why would I keep seeing a boy of about 2? Made me think it wasn't my child. But apparently spirit can show them in different ages. When they cross to the spirit world, they can be seen or come back as a newborn at their present age or at any other ages as they so choose. I felt so blessed and touched by this dream that I knew it was so true, as I have seen him in so many encounters with spirit, and also he's been getting in touch with me in this kind of manner. I think it's good news that even though it was confirmed by a midwife consultant that I would not be able to carry a child in my womb ever again, nonetheless, I was blessed once again by God, and I now always have a positive mindset. So 12 months later, I gave birth to a wonderful boy who will turn 14 this year. He is a remarkable, polite young man who is a truly caring and makes me really proud he is my son. I was also blessed with a beautiful little girl who will become 10 this year. She also is so beautiful, and also anyone who's told that they cannot have children, please remember, I say miracles can happen. If it's happened to me, it can happen to you. My sixth encounter. My sixth encounter occurred on the 24th of May 2019. I was unwinding by wallowing in our hot tub in the back garden. I lay there meditating for a while. By then I felt very relaxed, chilled out as the Americans would say, but not in the sense of temperature. I was there in the hot tub for about 2 hours. The sun was out and I was enjoying the sound of the lovely bird songs that bless our space. They were in full song. Then I looked up at the wonderful azure sky and suddenly caught a sight of 2 beautiful angels in the wispy clouds. My 8-year-old daughter was in the hot tub too, as she had just joined me for a warm, relaxing soak, so I explained to her what I had seen. I suggested she look for herself, and she too saw them and described them to me. I then pointed out a wonderful love heart in the sky, in the same area of the sky. It goes to show, in my view, that we are never alone, and that we are surrounded all the time by marvellous spirits. So we should never, ever have the need to feel despondent, as we are all loved so very much. In fact, more than we, still on Mother Earth, yet realise. My husband's passing. This is very hard to kind of read, but I know it's got to be done. On Tuesday the 6th of August 2019, my beautiful husband came into my angel card reading session while I was working for an online organisation which titles itself Psychic Sofa. Neil had a very trembling voice and shouted very loudly, "Elaine, I need you." I came off the business line at once and found my dear husband vomiting blood into the sink. Straight away, I rang for an ambulance and it arrived in minutes. It was then that I realised how serious was my husband's condition. Neil Andrew Lloyd was admitted to hospital and was taken to theatre straight away. Apparently my husband had suffered a throat aneurysm. My wonderful Neil had 3 bands fitted eternally, and I was advised he would be home fit and well in a few days. On the same Tuesday evening, I was informed my husband would need to have a blood transfusion due to the blood loss he had sustained. However, the hospital was sadly short-staffed, so they gave Neil alternative but unspecified medication that I was told would stop the blood loss. On Wednesday morning, my family and I were then advised that more bands needed to be fitted, but unfortunately they had to stop his internal bleeding before they could put this into effect. Which begs the question, why did they fit the bands the previous evening if it was necessary to stop the bleeding prior to fitting the bands? Again on Thursday morning, the bands were due to be fitted. I will never forget the telephone call I received direct from my dear husband that day. It was 8 a.m. on the 8th of August, telling me not to bring the children because he felt very weak and further said that the hospital had messed up. He said he had heard the staff talking. He told me he loved me very much and he sounded so scared, bless him. I reassured Neil that there was nothing to worry about, and I said I'll ring the hospital straight away. After speaking to a female member of the hospital staff, who I assumed was a nurse, I was given a confirmation that everything was okay with Neil, and she further said that she could not understand why he had said the hospital had messed up. At 9 a.m, I received another phone call direct from the hospital, asking me to go there immediately. I was there at 9:15 a.m. I was told that my husband had suffered a cardiac arrest at 9:14 a.m, and that the hospital were very concerned about Neil's heart rate, which is why they made the urgent call for me to attend at once. I begged to be allowed in to see Neil, but they said I could not, as a team of 10 doctors were working on him. I dropped to my knees and pleaded because my husband was not breathing, so eventually they let me in. It was the worst sight that I'd ever seen. My heart sank. My beautiful husband had suffered his cardiac arrest a minute before I arrived. I knew 100% that they would bring him back with me by his side. I yelled at the doctors, please, please don't stop, get the defibrillator out. I held Neil's hand very tight and I felt a tight squeeze back. The next minute the nurse shouted out, we've got a pulse. I felt so happy and thought that I had saved Neil with my strong, loving words and the healing energies that I was giving to Neil. But then 3 beautiful angels appeared at the foot of his bed, with his dear, loving father standing next to them. I cried out, Neil, please no. You are not ready yet to pass over to the spirit world. Please come back to me and the children. In reply, Neil simply squeezed my hand even tighter. My loving husband was then taken away, and a doctor informed me that they would stop the internal bleeding, and my husband would be okay. Neil was then put on a ventilator, and I was so pleased he began breathing for himself, and his heart rate was back to normal. Nonetheless, and some time later, a hand was then placed on my shoulder, and a gentle voice said, can I please have a word in private? I agreed, and was taken to a small, quiet prayer room, where I was told that, unfortunately, your husband's internal bleeding couldn't be stopped, as we do not know where it is coming from, so you will eventually bleed to death. I became hysterical. I had my beautiful sister Debbie, niece Leah, and a friend Rod at my side to help me through this terrible, heart-rending ordeal. Unfortunately, my loving husband was given his angel wings far too young at the age of 48. He passed over to the spirit world at 4 p.m. on the 8th of August 2019. The lesson I took from this was a life lesson, that we are all put on Mother Earth for a certain amount of time, and when your life journey is over, it is over for you to explore your new adventure in the spirit world, until you meet your loved ones again, and you will enjoy eternal life with them. I was pleased that Neil's father came for him, and that Neil had his guardian angels by his side from the start to the finish during his hospital admission. My gorgeous loving husband Neil spent his first Christmas as an angel in December 2019, God bless him. Neil has never left my side since he passed over, and is keeping me and the children strong. I'd like to close my book with this beautiful, loving quote. a Sanskrit proverb. Look to this day, for yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today well lived makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. God bless you all.